At a corporate gala, cameras flashing, a young CEO steps onto the stage with her 8-year-old daughter by her side. Then, through the crowd, a man pulls a gun and points it directly at the girl. Screams erupt. Guests rush for the exits. Security guards stand frozen in shock, but one man doesn't run. A man in a cheap, worn vest lunges forward, arms spread wide, shielding the child with his body. A gunshot echoes. He falls. Blood spreads across his shirt. His last whisper, "You're safe now." Silence descends on the room. The CEO looks at this stranger, this nobody who gave everything for her daughter. Michael Hell was nobody, or so everyone thought. A 38-year-old single father working as a maintenance man in the Lane Corporation tower. The guy who fixed broken light bulbs and unclogged toilets. An invisible man in a cheap vest, passed by without a second thought. But to one person, he was everything. "Daddy, you're my superhero," 9-year-old Ella said every morning, hugging him tightly before school. Michael smiled, ruffling her hair. Just an ordinary dad, sweet, but he wasn't ordinary, not even close. Beneath that, a deeply hidden past. Sergeant Michael Hale, call sign, Ghost Wolf, a former Special Forces operative, a soldier who carried out missions that never made it onto the official lists. He left it all behind 6 years ago when his wife died suddenly, leaving him alone with 3-year-old Ella. Michael made a choice. No battlefields, no life or death operations, just him and his daughter. A quiet life, a safe life. The only reminder of the past was a worn dog tag he kept tucked into his shirt. The dog tag was engraved with 2 words, duty and honor. Sometimes he touched it when memories flooded in, then looked at Ella and remembered why he'd left that world behind. Across town, in a penthouse overlooking the skyline, sat Isabella Lane, 30, CEO of Lane Corporation. Brilliant, driven, respected, feared. She'd built walls around herself, thick walls, fighting her way to the top in a world that doubted her at every turn. Trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford. Beside her, 8-year-old Sophie played quietly with her tablet. The girl was used to being surrounded by bodyguards and assistants, used to being watched, protected, isolated. "Mom, can I invite a friend over sometime?" Sophie asked quietly. Isabella looked up from her papers, absent-minded. "We'll see, dear. Mom's really busy right now." Sophie nodded, looking down. She'd heard this answer before. The company's most important event of the year was approaching, the product launch gala. Investors, media, competitors, everyone who mattered would be there. Isabella had planned every detail. Everything had to be perfect. Meanwhile, in the maintenance department, Michael was given his assignment. "Hale, you'll be on duty at the event tomorrow night," his boss said, tossing him a badge. "Stay back, fix anything that breaks, and for God's sake, don't embarrass us in front of the VIPs." Michael nodded. Just one more job tonight. He helped Ella with her homework at their small kitchen table. "Dad, what do you think courage means?" she asked. His pencil hovered over her assignment. Michael thought for a moment. "Courage is doing what's right, even when you're scared, even when it costs you something." Ella smiled like a superhero. Like anyone who decides to defend another, he didn't know that less than 24 hours later, he'd have to prove his case. The next evening, the Lane Corporation Tower was ablaze with lights, red carpets, luxury cars, designer dresses. And at the stage door, Michael Hale, toolbox in hand, appeared, just another invisible man in a cheap vest. "Wait, what city are you watching from?" It's amazing how far stories like this can travel. Subscribe if you want to watch the story unfold with us. Now, back to the table, where everything changed. The ballroom sparkled like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, gold accents, guests in $1,000 suits sipping champagne. Michael stood against the back wall, toolbox in hand, scanning the surroundings for anything he could fix. He was checking a faulty light switch when it happened. "Watch where you're going." Michael turned around. He had accidentally bumped into Richard Torres, the company's operations manager, a man known for his expensive watches and even more inflated ego. Torres looked at him with disgust. "Useless cleaner, stay away. This is an event for important guests." "People, not whoever you are nearby." The guest turned and smirked. A woman in a diamond necklace loudly whispered to her companion. "Who allowed this?" From the basement, or wherever, a chuckle echoed through the group. Michael said nothing. He'd long since learned that some battles weren't worth fighting. He simply nodded and stepped back. But across the room, hidden behind a column, a small figure watched the whole thing. Ella had snuck in through the stage door to surprise her father, wearing her most beautiful dress. Now she stood rooted to the spot, watching strangers mock her heroine. Tears welled up in her eyes. Michael caught her eye, smiled slightly, and winked. "It's okay, honey, I'm okay." But her little heart still broke. The stage lights dimmed. A spotlight fell on Isabella Lane as she stepped forward. Sophie stood beside her in a beautiful white dress. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight." Isabella's voice was confident and commanding. She spoke of innovation, of the future, of Lane Corporation's revolutionary new product. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. Sophie stood quietly next to her mother, uneasy with all the attention. She scanned the crowd, searching for something familiar. Her gaze fell on Michael at the back of the room, a kindly man in a simple vest. He smiled softly at her. She smiled. Isabella continued her speech. "This product represents not just technology, but also commitment." Then everything descended into chaos. A man in a dark coat pushed through the crowd, his face contorted with rage. His hand reached for his jacket. Security warned. Too late. A gun popped out, chromed, deadly, pointed straight at Sophie. "You destroyed my family," the man screamed. "Now I will destroy yours." Time seemed to slow down. Isabella's face went pale with terror. The guests screamed, jumping over each other, trying to escape. The guards reached for their guns, but they were too far away. The shooter's finger went to the trigger, and Michael moved forward. Without thinking, pure instinct. The training he had suppressed for 6 years came rushing out. His toolbox crashed to the floor. His feet shot forward with incredible speed and precision. 3 seconds, that's all it took. He crossed the 20 feet of the dance floor, weaving through the panicked guests. Sophie froze on the stage, confused and afraid. Isabella reached for her daughter, but she wasn't close enough. Michael rushed up the stage steps. The shooter's eyes widened in surprise. Michael threw himself between the gun and the little one. The girl's arms spread out like a shield. A deafening shot rang out. Michael's body jerked. Blood spread across his white shirt, but Sophie remained unharmed. He fell to his knees, hugged the trembling girl, pulled her close, and covered her completely with his body in case of a second shot. A shocking silence fell over the room. The guards wrestled the shooter to the ground. Michael's strength was quickly fading. He looked at Sophie, who looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. He smiled softly, reassuringly. "You're safe now," he whispered. Then his gaze fell on Ella in the crowd. His little girl stood frozen in place, her hand covering her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. He mouthed, "I love you, darling." Isabella fell to her knees beside him, her hands shaking. "Oh God! Oh God! Someone call an ambulance." Michael's hand slid from Sophie's shoulder. His body went limp. Sophie clung to him, sobbing, "Don't go, please, don't go." Blood spread across the stage floor beneath him. His breathing became shallow. Each breath labored as a struggle unfolded around them. The ballroom went silent. Guests stood in shocked groups, some crying, others pulling out phones and recording everything that was happening. The same people who had been laughing at him just minutes before now looked on in horror. Torres stood near the stage, his face pale, his grin gone. Paramedics burst through the doors, equipment rattling. "Everyone, step back, give us room." They rushed to Michael, immediately assessing his wound. A gunshot wound to the upper chest, pulse weak. "We need to move now." Isabella didn't let go of his hand. "Will he survive?" "Please tell me he will survive, ma'am. We need room to work." Ella pushed through the crowd, running toward the stage. "Dad, Dad." The guard tried to hold her back, but she pushed past him, climbing the steps. She fell next to her father, clutching his free hand. "Daddy, please, please don't leave me. You promised you'd always be there." Michael's eyes fluttered open. He squeezed her hand weakly. "My brave girl." Then his eyes closed again. The paramedics lifted him onto a stretcher. "We're losing him. We need to go now." They raced for the exit. Ella ran beside him, still holding his hand. Sophie watched them go. Her white dress was stained with his blood. She stood there, shaking. The last seconds replayed in her mind. The stranger, the shield, the whisper. "You're safe now." Isabella hugged her daughter. They were both shaking. The room was silent, broken only by the fading sound of sirens. The ambulance sped through the city streets. Red and blue lights flickered against the night sky. Inside, paramedics were frantically working on Michael's body. IVs, oxygen mask, pressure on the wound, blood pressure dropping to 70/40ths. "Stay with us, sir, stay with us." Ella sat, seatbelt, in the corner, helplessly watching as they fought for her father's life. Her hands were covered in blood. His blood had ruined her dress, but she didn't care. Isabella and Sophie followed them in a separate car, accompanied by security. Sophie hadn't stopped crying since they left the hospital ballroom. Michael was rushed to the operating room. The waiting room quickly filled with lane employees, journalists, and curious onlookers. Ella sat alone on a plastic chair, looking at the operating room doors, waiting and praying. Isabella approached slowly. Sophie, squeezing her hand, sat down next to Ella, unsure what to say. "Your father," Isabella's voice wavered. "He saved my daughter's life." Ella didn't look up. "He saves everyone. That's what heroes do." "What's his name?" "I don't even know his name." "Michael Hale." Ella's voice was barely audible. "He's a maintenance worker in your building. You probably never noticed him." Isabella felt the words like a slap in the face. She hadn't noticed him. Not even a few hours passed. 3, 4, 5. Finally, the surgeon appeared, still wearing a bloody gown. Silence fell over the waiting room. "He's alive," the surgeon said, barely audible. The bullet had missed. His heart had shifted a few centimeters. He had lost a huge amount of blood, but for now, he was stable. Ella, sobbing, collapsed in relief, covering her face with her hands. "He's a fighter," the surgeon continued. "I've seen combat wounds. This man has military training. His body knew how to survive." Isabella's eyes widened. 2 hours later, they were cleared to enter the recovery room. Michael lay unconscious, tubes and wires connected to machines that beeped incessantly. His chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Ella held his hand, refusing to let go. Isabella stood by the door, Sophie next to her, on the floor next to Michael's bed. Something had fallen from his clothing, a worn metal chain. Isabella picked up the dog tag, old and scratched, with the words "duty" and "honor" engraved on it. She turned it over, name, rank, unit designation. Her hands trembled. "Sergeant Michael Hale, Special Forces, Ghost Wolf." The door opened. A man in his 60s, wearing a dress military uniform, walked in. Colonel James Peterson, retired. He was at the gala as a guest. He stopped when he saw Michael in bed. His face went pale. "Oh my God, it's really him," Isabella whispered, turning around. You know him. Peterson's voice was full of awe. Ghost Wolf was a legend, one of the most decorated operators in the history of Special Forces. Missions in places we can't even name, he saved countless lives. He walked slowly toward the bed, as if it were a shrine. "I served with him in Afghanistan, saw him single-handedly carry 3 wounded soldiers through enemy fire in the middle of the night." Isabella felt the room spin. "But he's a maintenance worker. He disappeared 6 years ago," Peterson continued. "After his wife died, we all wondered what happened to him. Turns out he chose fatherhood over fame, anonymity over recognition." He looked at Ella. "Are you his daughter?" Ella nodded, tears streaming down her face. Peterson's gaze softened. "Then you have the bravest father in this country, young lady, maybe even in the world." Word spread quickly. By morning, the story had exploded across every news channel, every social media platform. A hero's secret revealed. A legendary soldier saves a CEO's daughter. The Ghost Wolf returns. A janitor who was actually a war hero. Photos of the dog tag circulated online. Military documents corroborated the story. Veterans came forward. Testimonies of Sergeant Hale's heroism. The ballroom video went viral. 20 million views in 12 hours, 50 million by the end of the day. People replayed the moment over and over. A man in a cheap vest running forward while everyone else was running. A gunshot. A fall. A whisper. "You're safe now." Comments poured in by the thousands. "This is what a real man looks like. We pass heroes every day and don't even notice." He never hesitated. At the hospital, Michael's room was filled with flowers, cards, letters from strangers, from veterans, from parents thanking him for protecting their child. On the 3rd day, Michael's eyes finally opened. The first thing he saw was Ella, asleep in the chair next to him. Her hand was still clasped in his. He squeezed it tenderly. She woke immediately, gasping for breath. "Daddy, hi, honey," he whispered hoarsely. "I'm okay." She burst into tears, resting her head on his chest, carefully feeling his heartbeat. "It's alive, it's still here." A few moments later, Isabella came in with Sophie. When Sophie saw that Michael was awake, she ran to his bedside. "You saved me," she said, her eyes wide. "You didn't even know me, and you saved me, Michael. Any father would have done the same. But you're not my father," Michael said softly. "But I am a father, and I couldn't let another little girl lose what my Ella almost lost. I couldn't let you grow up without your mother." Sophie reached out and took his hand. Thank you so much." Isabella stepped forward. The dog tag in her hand fell from your shirt. Michael looked at it, a part of his past that he had hidden for so long. "Ghost Wolf," Isabella said quietly. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" "Because I'm not that anymore," Michael replied. "I'm just a father, and that's all I want to be." "You're more than that," Isabella said, her voice shaking with emotion. "You're everything we should be striving for, and I'm ashamed that I never saw that none of us saw that." Michael's eyes grew heavy again. "Don't let her grow up in fear," he whispered, looking at Sophie. "Let her laugh. Let her play. Let her be a child like my Ella." Isabella nodded. The tears were streaming. "Now I promise." When Michael fell asleep again, the two girls. Sophie stood next to her and took Ella's hand. Two daughters, two fathers. One moment that changed everything. The incident in the ballroom became a reckoning. Within 24 hours, the video had been viewed more than 100 million times worldwide. Every angle, every moment. The ridicule, the humiliation, the heroism. And people were angry. Richard Torres, the operations manager who had called Michael a useless janitor, became the poster child for corporate cruelty. His image was everywhere. Screenshots of him laughing, clips of his disparaging remarks. The reaction was immediate and brutal. "This is how you treat your heroes. He risked his life while you ran. You should be ashamed." Torres tried to issue a statement of apology, but it was too late. The damage was done. 3 days after the incident, Isabella called an emergency board meeting. The entire executive team gathered in the conference room. She stood at the head of the table. Her expression was cold and determined. Richard Torres was fired, effective immediately. The room fell silent, but Isabella. One board member objected. "He's been with us 12 years, and he's brought shame on this company." Isabella interrupted. Michael Hale delivered on his promise. One man in a cheap vest showed more character than our entire management team combined. She glanced around the table. "Anyone who has a problem with this decision can join Torres in line for unemployment." No one else said a word. "What's more," Isabella continued, "I'm establishing the Michael Hale Foundation. Scholarships for the children of veterans, mental health services for former soldiers transitioning to civilian life, funding for single parents struggling to make ends meet." She paused, her voice softening. "And Michael Hale will have a position here for as long as he wants, not in maintenance, but as Director of Security and Public Affairs, with a salary befitting a man who was willing to die for us." The board members nodded, some with tears in their eyes. At the hospital, the scene outside Michael's room transformed into something extraordinary. Veterans in uniform lined the hallways, standing at attention, a silent honor guard for one of their families. They brought their children to leave drawings and letters. "Thank you for your bravery. You're my hero. I want to be like you when I grow up." Ella watched from the doorway, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love for her father. Sophie stood beside her. The two girls became inseparable above. "Your dad's become a celebrity these last few days," Sophie said quietly. Ella smiled. "He's always been a celebrity to me." Inside, Michael watched the news in disbelief. His face was on every channel, his story told and retold. Colonel Peterson visited the hospital again, this time with a delegation of military officials. "The president wants to award you the Civilian Medal of Valor," Peterson said. Michael shook his head. "I don't need medals." "It's not about what you need," Peterson replied softly. "It's about showing the world what courage looks like, real courage, the kind that doesn't wear a uniform or seek external recognition." Camera crews were broadcasting live from the hospital. Crowds had gathered with signs. "Thank you, Michael. Heroes walk among us. Respect the invisible." The story touched something deep in the collective consciousness, a reminder that heroism doesn't announce itself, That the most powerful people aren't always the ones in corner offices. Sometimes they're the ones fixing the lights, the ones we never see until we need them most. 2 weeks later, Michael was finally discharged from the hospital. The media frenzy had died down, but its impact remained. He refused interview offers from every major television network and declined a book. "I just want to go home with my daughter," he told them all. But there was one visit he couldn't refuse. Isabella and Sophie came to his small apartment on a Sunday afternoon. The apartment was modest, clean, filled with photographs of Ella and the drawings she'd made over the years. Sophie was carrying something wrapped in paper. She approached Michael, who was sitting on the couch, still recovering. "I made this for you," she said shyly. Michael carefully unrolled a colored pencil drawing on white paper. It depicted a man with angel wings, his arms outstretched, protecting a little girl above them. Scribbled on the drawing in a childish handwriting, "Uncle Michael, my guardian angel." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "This is beautiful, Sophie, thank you." Sophie hugged him tenderly, carefully tending to his wounds. "You gave me my life back. I will never forget that." Isabella stepped forward, her composure finally breaking. "All my life, I've judged people by their titles, their clothes, their bank accounts." She knelt down to be level with him. "My daughter sees who you really are. She always has. She saw it in 30 seconds, and I couldn't see it for 3 years. You protected her," Michael said softly. "That's what good mothers do." "And I isolated her," Isabella corrected. "Built walls. You taught me that true strength isn't about walls, but about bridges, about connection, about trust." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is a contract for the director of security position. You can start whenever you're ready, or never. The offer is permanent." Michael took the envelope but didn't open it. "I'll think about it. Take your time." The afternoon sun streamed through the windows. Ella and Sophie sat together on the floor, drawing and laughing. Two girls who found friendship in tragedy. Michael watched them. A small smile appeared on his face, despite the pain in his chest. "You know what I realized?" he said quietly to Isabella. "I thought I'd left the battlefield forever. When Ella was born, I thought I'd traded duty for diapers, honor for homework." He touched his chest, where the scar would forever remain. But fatherhood is the most important battlefield. Every day is a mission. Every decision matters. Every moment matters. Isabella nodded, understanding. Courage was etched on her face. "Courage never rests," Michael continued. "It just changes form. Children are playing outside. Birds sang in the yard. Life went on, beautiful and fragile." Michael looked at his daughter, at Sophie, at the simple joy of two children simply being children, and he knew he would make the same choice 1,000 times over, every single time. Subscribe if you believe that true heroes are fathers who never stop protecting.